Hello, I'm your host, Leonard Duncan. Welcome to a new episode of ATV-TALK and Motorsports Podcast. Please join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We bring you interviews with industry professionals, live events, live news about the motorsports industry in every episode. Enjoy the show. Ed Teixeira from Teixeira Tech. How are you, bud?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to come on ATV Talk. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, sure thing. It was a good time last time. Figured it'd be a nice time again.
Well, we don't have Joe with us, but what we're going to do is we're just going to cover a little bit more about you and the development of you coming into the ATV industry.
Okay. Well, I used to be a dairy farmer. That's where I started. So I started racing in about 92 or so. I always wanted to race before that, but I started racing in 92. I think I caught like the last race of CMC that year or something. That was kind of my first dabble and basically raced until the early 2000s. ATVs and some watercraft. And during that time, I got hooked up with Mike Halleck when he started Custom Axis. I'm sure you probably know that name.
Yep.
So when I was developing shocks with him, Nick Randlin and I, might have been another couple other people in there that were helping him out develop shocks, and it just really interested me. I don't know, I just found it so amazing the way things worked, it became a passion. And so I absorbed everything I could from Halleck the whole time I was testing for him, and kind of figured I wanted to build some A-arms and just get into the suspension side of it. I never got into, building the shocks. I know how they work and how to somewhat tune them, but I was more interested in the chassis side of the suspension stuff.
So let me ask you a question going back in time here. You go from dairy farming to fabricating A-arms.
Yeah.
How does that correlate in anyone's world?
I don't know. I fell in love with fabrication when I started doing it, and just the way things worked. So we had a dairy until about 2003, roughly, I think it was. When my dad was ready to retire. And so it was so I'd say like late 90s, I started building my own stuff. I'd always wanted to go desert racing. Let me back up. So I raced motocross, did the short stint of the Mickeys right before they went belly up. And was racing quads, mostly motocross. That's mostly what I had. But I'd always wanted to go desert racing. I'd always looked through the magazines, and they did Eichner's bike and roll bike, and they list all the specs. And like, one day I'm going to go desert racing. So I started building some of my own stuff to go motocross racing. And in 2001, I was at a bar talking to a buddy of mine, and he bought a 2001 Raptor 660 and tumbled it down the hill. And he's telling me how the A-arms destroyed, the steering stem is destroyed. Pretty much everything you replace to go racing is destroyed. And he wants to sell it cheap. So I was like, that's a good opportunity to buy a bike and build some parts for it and go desert racing. So that's how I started. I built my own stuff. I had some help. I didn't do it myself, in the beginning, and a lot of feedback from Halleck on how to set up leverage ratios and all that kind of stuff. So I ended up building my own stuff and going and hitting Vegas to Reno in 2001, my first desert race.
How'd you do?
We ended up DNFing. I wrecked. We were doing good. I think that we entered the expert class, me and my partner, and we were up into the pro class. But I ended up coming into a corner too hot and just roached the bike, couple compression fractures in my back. So I learned a lesson. It was not a motocross race. And
Right.
we were running it like a motocross race.
And you learned quickly that desert races are not motocross races.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome that you best in the desert, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yeah.
The fun stuff out there. Um,
Yeah.
as you developed into building your own product, I've seen small amounts of your stuff off and on for years. Where do you come up with some of your ideas? Is it all from actual writing time, or is it people coming to you with problems they're having and asking you to fix them?
Um, a lot of it's just my own past experience. Once you get the leverage ratios figured out, that part of it's easy. Then it's just, I guess the more difficult part is now that I'm older, I don't write as much as I used to. It's getting the feedback from the riders if we need to change wheelbase somehow. Move the arms forward, bring them back, whatever direction you got to go. But most of it's just feel. At the time when I was doing more racing, it was my own feedback. Now it's just finding riders that can really relay what needs to be done.
Have you noticed an increase in ATV sales, ATV parts sales, and the desire for different parts?
I don't know. For me, it's been a drop off in ATVs and the increase in side by sides.
Really?
Yeah.
So you went from, how did you get into the UTV arms?
Well, I have to think about that one. I think when the 800 came out, it was just kind of the next thing to try. And so it was all stock replacement stuff. So I built a little bit, and I started to dabble in it, try to get my name out there in the side by side. You could see over time as the manufacturers were dropping off ATVs, Suzuki, KTM start to drop off. Well, you start to have to look for other avenues to stay busy. So when the side by sides came up, I waited a handful of years. I didn't jump into the side by sides right off the bat. I waited some time, and then got into it. Probably right around the time the 1000 came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you still do ATV stuff. It's just not your forefront anymore. Is the UTVs are they?
I'm about 60-40 right now, I would say. 60 side by sides, 40 ATVs.
And you make ATV product for everything, or is it specific models?
Almost everything. I started off with 250R stuff, so I still have some fixtures for 250R stuff, but I'm wanting to do a little bit of a revamp right now and update that stuff. That's when I first started. I kind of like what I do now better than the old stuff. So I want to get back into some 250Rs, and then I've got 400EX stuff, 450R stuff, both Honda and Yamaha. I did KTM. I kind of dropped that off. That stuff doesn't move very well anymore. 400EX, which was pretty much the same as the LTZ 400, and the Cannondale, that kind of stuff. I got a little bit of everything.
Really?
But my main stuff right now is the Honda 450R. The 400EX is actually still pretty good for me. And then the YFCR.
Do you have because I apologize. I don't know a whole lot about your operation.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I've seen your name around for years and years, but are you guys a large fabrication facility, or are you doing most of it yourself?
No, I've got it varies depending on the time of the year, when we're busier, but I can be anywhere from 3 to 6 guys in the shop. But we're not huge, but I cannot keep up by myself.
We're all having that problem now.
Yeah.
There's enough business to bury us,
Mm-hmm.
but not enough business to bring on those people that could elevate it to where I would be caught up all the time or
Yeah.
ahead. And that's, if you're ahead, you're not making money.
I don't Me personally, I don't want to be too big. I've seen what happens to certain companies when they get too big and you start to see the quality fall off. So yeah, I could try and blow it up and see what how big we can get, but then I always want the customers to get as good of a part as we can make. And I maybe there's a way to do it, but I don't know how to get too big and still kind of keep an eye on everything to make sure it's going out the door the way I
Exactly.
do.
Exactly. Your right hand and your left hand need to have the same passion and desire you do to make it work when you get that big. And they don't always have that.
No, no. So
It's a tough gig. It
yeah,
really is.
yeah.
When you were riding, what was your best machine, or what machine did you like the most?
The 250R.
The 250R?
The 250R is still my favorite. Well, I don't know if I was ever as fast on a 450R as I was on a 250R. It's just so light and nimble, and I don't know. It just, but you go hit desert, you need that torque. So you got to follow everybody else, or you're not going to do any good. Yeah,
In the desert, I totally believe that the 250Rs were great, but the heavier four strokes with the torque and the power they put out are just so much better. So let's get into the 250R stuff a little bit, being that was your machine that you liked. Can you believe that the industry for the 250Rs is still as big as it is?
no, no, I cannot believe that. I don't know if there'll ever be another machine like that, but I cannot believe that, that it's still going this long. Some of the other machines that have come and gone, you don't hear too much about them anymore, but the 250R is still going. So I don't know if there'll be another machine that will last as long as the 250R has.
You think it's the passion of the era of the industry is why it's still big?
Probably, I think so. I think the passion back then is different than the passion now, possibly. And so, the old timers, they're at an age now where they've got enough money to go back and rebuild what they enjoyed so much a handful of years ago. I mean, back when I was racing that thing, I was scraping the barrel trying to make it to races and buy parts and put stuff on. But now I might rebuild myself a 250R at some point and just keep that as my bike for, till I don't ride anymore. I need to have the time. But
When you get some time, right?
when I get some time,
Yeah, that's exactly it. You're talking most of your people that are doing stuff like that are occasionally you'll get somebody in their 30s, but most likely they're in their 40s or early 50s, and they have the money to build the machine that they've always wanted.
yeah, that's what I think it is.
Yeah, it's I can't believe the overwhelming amount of people that are building 250Rs.
Yeah, I've heard that from a couple motor builders that they're busy with 250Rs, and I'm amazed.
I'm busy with everything, so 250Rs is just one of the heavy lifters in the industry still. All of the old two strokes keep us pretty busy. The LT 250 is actually gaining ground right now, but
Really?
yeah,
Huh.
I don't know where these people have been hiding them. Uh, but a lot of them, it's because they developed a 250, they developed a Ducati, they developed this or that, and this is the last one in their group that they haven't touched yet.
Mm, okay, makes sense.
But it's hard to get parts for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and I don't know about you. I don't know if you make parts for the LT 250,
No,
but there's so many people that don't.
hmm. No, I never got into that one, so I probably won't work backwards. The only one I'll work backwards on is a 250R. So,
Right.
uh,
We released the LT 250 pipe this year, the mid-range
mhm,
version,
mhm.
and we hadn't made it in almost 20 years.
Well, is it going like hotcakes there?
They're selling pretty good. I mean, I can't complain. Not as good as I would like, but
Mm.
not, definitely not bad.
Huh.
You
How
know,
about,
go ahead,
I was gonna say, how about the Banshee? You getting much demand on that one still?
dude. I can't keep Banshee parts. I can't build Banshees fast enough, and I can't keep Banshee pipes in stock.
Huh. Well,
Yeah, unbelievable amount of people want Banshee product. And it's Banshees didn't used to be a cult following
mhm,
like the LT 500 was, and
mhm.
still is. But now Banshees have become, there's a cult following for them. And I know that sounds bad, but there is just an overwhelming amount of people that love Banshees
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
all of the modern day. I mean, I don't know what you have for them, but with all of the modern day upgrades, with the long travel link from Elka, the long travel front ends, the long travel shocks you can do on there, you put YFZR spindles on them, and they turn better. With the development of the shock technology, the ride is better. Engine packages are developed for more rideable for the customer. So the Banshees are outstanding. And it's not like riding that old school 89 Banshee that had a J arm on it where you put work shocks on it. It's so far from that world, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, that's. I almost wound up with. I went back and forth between a Banshee and a 250R when I first started racing. So I ended up with a 250R. I'm glad I did, but that was number two on the list was the Banshee, and
And
that's before I knew much about handling.
then, before you knew much about
So,
right. And a 92 Banshee in 92, to build one, you were so far from comfort when you did anything to them
mhm.
because the technology just hadn't, got there. But now it's a night and day different world when you build them and develop them with the power delivery. I mean, you've been around long enough to know that you can make things just ride unbelievably good with the modern day shock technology.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, because we use your link on our YFCRs. That's what Roll sells, and that's what
yeah.
I.
I know. Yeah, Doug picks those up from us. Yeah, yeah.
How is the YFZ 450R stuff? I mean, you were mentioning there'll never be another machine like the 250R. Well, they're saying that the YFZR is going to dethrone the 250 as the greatest ATV ever built. Are you looking for the best suspension technology for your sport ATV? Look no further than Elka Suspension, the industry leader in sport ATV suspension technology. With championship wins in prestigious events such as the Dakar Rally, Score, Best in the Desert, ATV MX, Cross Country, and Works, Elka Suspension has established itself as the go-to choice for athletes and enthusiasts alike. But they don't just stop at ATVs. They're constantly expanding into new markets, including UTVs, trucks, SUVs, pit bikes, snowmobiles, and more. Their commitment to innovation and quality means they're always looking to improve and adapt so you can enjoy a smooth ride wherever you go. Want to learn more about what Elka Suspension can do for you? Visit their website at elkasuspension.com or give them a call at 450-655-4855. They will always be happy to answer your questions and help you find the perfect suspension solution for your needs.
It may. I mean, there's so much technology in the YXZR, and advanced technology compared to the 250R, but I don't know if it will overthrow it as legendary. I don't know.
We may not be in the industry then.
Yeah, I may not. We may not. Who knows? We'll see. We'll
Right,
see.
right.
I don't know. I don't know if, I mean, how old's the 250R? 89, 99, what is that, 30, 40, 30?
We're the ATCs, we were just talking about it with David Ham. The ATCs frames are becoming 40 years. So you're, in your 35, 36-year-old, TRX 250R frames and the TRX itself.
So 35, 36 years from now, is the YFCR still going to be around? Are people still going to want to be rebuilding them? I don't know.
I think they will if there's the passion for the industry.
Yeah.
But they're still probably going to be wanting 250Rs.
Yeah.
Because the guys that are racing today saw the 250R and their kids are seeing the 250R and they're like, oh, what's that?
Yeah. I don't know.
Have you got into R&D or doing any development work on complete chassis, or is it just bolt-on components to the stock chassis?
I built myself a chassis. I haven't gotten into developing complete chassis, but I did build myself a chassis for desert in, what was that, 05? 05. I shouldn't say I built. I bought an Aaron's chassis, a 250R Aaron's chassis. And in 05, I completely redid the whole front suspension and the rear. This was when I was still working with Hallett. And I dropped a KTM motor in it. This is, before KTM had theirs. So that's about the closest I got to building a complete chassis.
How did that work for you?
It worked phenomenal.
Yeah, which motor did you pick?
14 inches of travel in the rear and 15 in the rear. 14 in the front and 15 in the rear. Still remember.
And what motor did you pick?
It was the KTM. What was that one called? The 525X. No, it wasn't XC. I don't remember the letters they use now. XRC. No, that's not right. They had an SX. They had like 3 different ones.
Okay.
There was the one with the wider spread gear ratio. That's what I was looking for that, but that's what I used. And then
why did you pick? What was your thought process by picking a KTM?
It was different at the time. They were doing really good. I somewhat kind of knew Chris Blaze back then when he was with KTM. So I picked his brain a little bit, and I wound up with that one. We ended up boring it out and dropping one of their strokers in it, and that pumped it up to like a 570 or 580, something like that. And we used that. My thinking was just getting the most horsepower we could to get some speed on some of the straightaways out in Best in the Desert.
How long did you race that machine?
2 years.
Really?
It was a big learning curve. That thing would get hot. We'd overheat they had a problem back then where the oil got so hot it melted the solder on the stator. So we had to plumb a oil cooler into that. Factory KTM actually helped us figure out how to do that, where to drill and tap the cases. So we had put an oil cooler on it that fixed the problem with the oil overheating and melting the stators. It was nothing but issues. So it was nothing but issues. And then the following year, we get a Honda 450R, which it was an 05. Yeah, so 06. 06, at the end of 06, I built the Honda 450R, and in 07, we won the championship. It was an expert championship, not the pro, but as soon as I got on the Honda, less headaches. So like I'm staying here. It doesn't have as much horsepower, but I'm finishing every race.
To finish first, you must first finish.
Yeah. When that KTM was wound up, though, that thing moved. I remember we caught an XR 650 on a straightaway one time with that quad. And the guy looks over at us as we're coming down past him, and he looks back again the second time. He couldn't believe that we had caught him.
He's probably looking down at his bike going, what's wrong with my machine?
Yeah. It was fast, but we didn't finish every race.
I remember when I was racing Best in the Desert, and every time you would catch a motorcycle guy, they would try to go faster, for a short while because they just didn't want to get passed by a quad.
Yeah. Oh, they didn't want the 4 tires creating dust in front of them, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, dude, you should have went faster throughout the day.
Yeah.
That's the hybrid desert machines, the one that the Stewarts built, that 650 that they built, did some
Mhm.
real damage out in the desert and
Yeah,
and won some races, but they had a huge learning curve as well.
yeah, yeah. And I believe they also built that, what was that Kawasaki 700? They had a learning curve.
Yeah,
So,
that never did really shine at all. That 650 won some races. That
yes, yeah.
Kawasaki, I don't think ever won a race, did it?
I don't know. I don't remember if they did. I do remember them doing all kinds of stuff to the motor. I think they did some gearing to remove the belt and put a chain on it, if I remember
Yep.
correctly.
Yep. They made it chain drive.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, it just never was. Well, dude, did you ever work on one?
No.
It was never meant to be raced. It was a workhorse tractor machine. I raced one for a year for Kawasaki, and it was just I couldn't compete against the lighter, easier to ride machines, even though I ended up second in points in the 30 plus A class, but I just couldn't manage the win.
Hmm.
Something always happened where I had a lot of seconds. You know, you just couldn't manage to get it out there in front of the younger guys or the guys on a. One of my nemesis was riding a Lobo 250R.
Yeah. Yeah, but now that makes me think of what's happening now. Now, fast forward to now, and you got these guys racing these Scrambler S's that are not far off from what that machine was. Maybe horsepower is probably different, but it's like,
Suspension travel.
yeah, that's all different. But it's like it might have started a little bit of kicked off somebody's mind back then, but it's, I don't know how big the 4x4 classes were back then, but they seem to be growing now.
Back east in the XC stuff, they were huge. Well, you're tied in really well with the Outlander, the Gen 2, making A-arms, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Cody Collier and Brandon Frazier and those guys.
yeah. Those two guys have been running my stuff for a handful of years now.
Yeah, and they're
Yeah,
both, dude, when you watch their videos, those guys are phenomenal riders.
yeah, yeah.
The 4x4 pro class in the cross country used to be bigger back years ago.
Mhm.
You got Mike Penland, rode
Yeah,
Kawasaki's and did some stuff, and yeah, it was bigger then. There was factory backing in that class for a while. As far as the Polaris, you can't ride it back there; it's too big.
yeah. The new one is, yeah,
They can ride on the West Coast, but you
yes, yeah.
can
I'm
ride it.
surprised there isn't more of them in the desert, to tell you the truth. That Scrambler S, when they did the intro, I don't know how many years ago, two or three, I was invited to go out and ride it out in the Vegas desert. And I was surprised that, I'm like, this is going to be a desert machine. And what is there, one or two out there maybe?
But nobody, the belt life is not an issue because they're super durable.
Mm-hmm.
But would be the issue is getting gas in it quick enough.
And I need a custom tank. IMS is not making anything for those that I know of.
No, and that's not. They're going to sell five.
Yeah.
Maybe
Go back to old school aluminum tanks. Might be able to get one in there.
probably. And with it not being a two-stroke, it's probably not gonna. It's probably not going to crack the same as they did. Like when they ran them on the 250Rs, where
Mm-hmm.
they used to Bondo them, build the aluminum,
Oh,
cover it with Bondo to cut
huh,
down vibration problems.
huh. Yeah, that I didn't know.
Yeah, they bonded them and rubber mounted them, and there was all kinds of elaborate stuff they did to try to keep them from cracking.
Hmm.
But Walsh makes them for the hybrid stuff.
Yeah,
Don't seem to be having any problems with the four strokes.
Huh? Something about the harmonics.
Pardon?
Something. Something with the vibrations, I guess.
That's exactly what why Mike Walsh told me
They're
is
different.
vibrations are down.
Hmm.
Have you seen his Mike Walsh's Gen 3 setup?
His chassis?
Yeah.
I don't know. I see some of his stuff pop up on social media, but I don't know what gen it is. Is Gen 3 his latest stuff?
Gen 3 is where he uses a lot of the Yamaha setup where you can buy all the pieces for the Yamaha frame,
Oh, I've seen that. Okay.
but
Yep.
he also makes it so that you can buy pieces to change motors.
Oh, right. Okay. So if you want to drop a different motor in the Yamaha chassis,
Yep. But you're keeping the main portion of it. So you're not
mhm.
going out and buying new shocks and a new swing arm and rear shock. You're only having to buy the components to switch over to whatever motor package that you want.
Okay, that's pretty spiffy.
That's,
Yep.
why didn't we do that 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago?
Um, huh. No,
I mean,
well, you can, I guess you can drop a smaller motor in there as you move up through the ranks too, maybe. Some of these guys are running the 250s.
yes, that's what he did. You can run those 250 motors, and then you have
Mhm.
the same chassis. If you crack something or need to switch over from, let's say you're running KTM 250s and you go to CRF 450s, you can just buy the componentry and bolt your Honda motor in it, and you're good to go.
Yeah, that's a good idea. In the long run, that'll save a chunk of money.
Well, we've got to do something. The industry's so damn expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, what was it to build a race bike, not your KTM hybrid, but what was it to build a race bike back in 2007?
Oh, I wouldn't know what the regular guy paid. I mean, at that point, I was already building my own suspension, so I
If
don't
you had to
know.
buy, if you had to buy the stuff retail,
You're probably looking at around 20, just shy of 20, maybe, if you back then, I think is what it might have been.
22,000, I would say.
Or if you bought all the high end stuff.
Yep.
And now, I don't know what it is now, probably pushing 30.
Desert or motocross? I mean, or I think cross country is probably the cheaper of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But to build a desert bike that's going to live in today's world, you're all over 30.
Yeah.
And if you build a motocross bike to compete against, Joel Hetrick and Chad and Ford and all them, I bet you're all over 35.
Yeah. Not everybody can get into the sport. Well, they can get into it in up to about the B class, and then after that, you have to dump some more if you want to keep up.
A lot of the AB riders or BC riders are running pro level quads. They go out and buy somebody's machine that was, being sold.
Uh,
So they have a little less buy-in money, but now they got to keep up that $10,000 motor.
Yeah,
It's crazy stuff, man. Where do
yeah.
you see? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say we'll see what comes into the industry here. We got this kale that popped up. We're floating around that 200. That's kale, right?
Yep.
One that Joe's been pushing.
Well, and then we're hoping that 300 comes in the country.
Yeah,
I think that if it is a halfway decent bike, why am I worried about A-arms and certain things they put on there when I have an Ed Textera, a Doug Roll, a Mike Walsh, a Hauser, and a Lone Star that's going to fix those problems for me?
yeah,
If it's a popular machine, why would you not make A-arms? Why would you not make upgrade componentry to make it better?
right.
Right?
Yeah, no, you would. We're sitting on the fence right now to see what happens. I don't know what
Well,
we're
yeah.
gonna do.
I think all of us are. I haven't sat down and talked to my brother about it as much as I would like to.
Mhm.
Because we're so, I don't even know if we could develop new parts. We're so busy.
So,
I mean,
huh.
we work 7 days a week and we're not even close to being able to keep up. I mean, it's frustrating. It's frustrating because we work so much, and it's frustrating that I can't turn it quick enough.
Well, good problem to have. Some people say better than being twiddling your thumbs with nothing to do.
Well, I sure do enjoy days like Christmas, but being able to take a day off. My wife made it very clear, you are not working. Oh,
How many people do you guys have there?
my brother and I.
That's it, just the two of you?
Yep. My dad's 89 and he can help a little, but he's
Mhm,
89 and doesn't do as much as he used to. And we have
mhm.
a couple close people that have been with us, helping out doing specific little things, but for the most part, Lauren and I do it all.
Well,
I run the retail outlet and do the chassis, and he does the engines, and
mhm.
then comes over and helps with the things that need to be done in the retail outlet. But yeah, it's a some people go, well, you guys are closed Mondays and Saturdays and Sundays. Well, I'm working so
Yeah,
that I can even think. I got to shut the phone off so that I can work.
yeah. We've got our shop down to 410s Monday through Thursday, but I'm still in there Friday, Saturday. If we don't have anything family going on Sundays too. So, but my guys are only in there Monday through Thursday.
And when there's no phone and there's nobody there, I bet you get more work done, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I totally get it. I wanted to ask you a couple questions, and we were touching on it with that KO. The future of the industry is going to be based on what comes, and you basically already answered the question, but I want to clarify it for the listeners. If a machine comes from China,
Mhm.
Taiwan, wherever, are you opposed to building and making parts for it if it's something that the industry deems that they want?
No, of course not. It doesn't matter where they come from. Even the Japanese bikes, they have parts from them that come from China. So, parts are made all over the place. So if it's a good quality bike that people are gonna use and the numbers are there, then we'll develop parts for anything. So
I don't know where your feelers are in the industry. I know you're friends with Joe Toll from ATV On Demand, Alan, and those guys have good feelers in the industry. Where do you think the future of the ATV world's going?
right now it looks like it's going to hybrid. It's working its way a little bit towards hybrid. Um, I still think you still need to help out the OEM. You need to keep classes that are not hybrid just to keep the cost down. Um, I don't know where it's going. I mean, we thought it was dying back in what, the 90s, late 90s, or I don't remember, early 2000s and then all of a sudden one manufacturer releases a new ATV and then another one hops on board. And before you know it, what was it, 2006 or seven, we've got how many out there? I don't remember what it was, but
Four or
everybody was
five.
like,
There were three or four, maybe five at that time, and
well, I
then
don't know. It's hard to tell. I think we're going to see more. I think we're going to see better quality stuff coming out of China than we have in the past. And that may take off. I still think we need to keep the ATV industry relatively inexpensive. I know there's so much side by side stuff going on, but these kids I call them kids, some are, some aren't, but between 18 to 24, not all of them can go out and buy a 25, $30,000 side by side. So we still need to keep some sort of ATVs. It's kind of a stepping stone, I believe. I mean, that's where I came from. That's where you came from. I think it's a stepping stone we need to keep alive. And as people get older, then If they want to jump into a cage, they jump into a cage.
Yeah, I'm fighting that cage thing really, really hard.
I
Because
haven't raced one yet. I'm going to eventually race one. I haven't raced one, but I don't know. I just, you know, some people just, some people may not even get into the industry. They're afraid it's so dangerous. So if they have a cage, they might get in, and it's good. The more people we get into our industry, the better it is for all of us.
the problem that you see now, though, with the cage people that don't know anything, that buy them and go out to the sand dunes or out to the hard packed desert,
Mm-hmm.
they haven't learned any etiquette. They know nothing about it, and they go out and they actually hurt more than they help.
ATV stepping stone.
Right. You learn on your ATV, you learn the etiquette, learn how to do it, then go jump in your UTV. And I agree. I think that there'd be less UTV sales if there were more ATVs.
Yeah, I believe so too. We don't have many sport. What do we got for sport ATVs? Two. Yep.
Well, if you count the KO 200, three.
Right.
That
one needs a bit more publicity.
You know what? I've never physically seen one been able to touch one, and I've been to two places that say they sell them.
They sell them, but they didn't have them?
Right.
Huh. I haven't seen one in person yet. Just photos.
Yeah, and I got to see the video of Joe riding it. But
yeah, that too.
I mean, some of this stuff is knockoff technology, which reverse engineering, however they get there, they got to get there. CF Moto is one of the companies that they have a 450 dirt bike, and it's relatively new. And there's a rumblings that they may come out with a 450 sport quad.
Oh, that'd be good. Good for the industry.
I don't know if they understand, or done enough research to roll it into the mainstream. But if it's something, it's something.
Yeah. Something.
I mean, if they sell enough of them, we'll build parts for them. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, yeah. So will we.
Yeah. I mean, you almost have to. I mean, did you ever build any parts for the DS650?
No.
How about the Cannondale?
The Cannondale, yes, because the A-arms were the same as the 400EX. Just a little bit different frame mounts, but basically the same. So out there.
So you adapted what you had to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We were seconds away from doing a Cannondale thing, and got a phone call right before we were going to invest a large amount of capital in that machine. And we were told by a very good source, do not do that. And like 2 days later, they folded.
That was a different machine, that's for sure.
I talked to Corey Ellis, and I talked to some of the guys that got to ride him, and they loved him. I don't know how you could ride something that sounded like it was eating itself.
Back when that thing was out, I was pretty good friends with Nick Granlund, and he was on one of those for a few years. I don't remember how long, but he seemed to like it too.
Yeah, all the guys like Nick and Corey that knew something about how to ride an ATV and work on it liked them. But the people that didn't, I mean, personally, I didn't like them, but I was fixated on Hondas at that point, and that's all I ever wanted to work on.
Yeah.
Now I would relish the fact something like that coming out.
Yeah.
Be all over it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where do you think the UTV industry is going? Because I'm hearing rumblings that they're having setbacks and issues.
They've taken a pretty good hit as far as sales. That's not hard to see, but I think everything has. Um, I don't know. I don't know where they're going either. Honestly, I think there's going to be a scaling back with those that they're just getting. I mean, what are they now? $45,000, $50,000, I think.
Yep.
For the well, that's the high end ones. Obviously, you don't have to buy a high end one, but almost everybody wants the top of the line stuff. So there's going to be some cutbacks. We ended up picking up one for the shop here not too long ago, just because of all the rebates and sales they were having. Instead of borrowing racers' machines or customers' machines, we just went and grabbed one ourselves. I think we got on a 30 something $1,000 machine, we got about $11,000 off.
Nice.
So we picked one up and started developing parts for it here. We've actually been developing parts for it already. We'll be getting some probably for next year on Bo Barron's machine. He'll be running our stuff. So to have those kinds of rebates and sales, that's not normal. So I think
Not at all.
I think it's going to taper off. I mean, I think a lot of people went and bought machines during COVID, and now all these payments and things are coming due. I think they're coming due, and so they're selling them. So I think the market's getting flooded with used machines that are still fairly new. So that's what I'm thinking.
And I don't know how this affects you guys at all, but there is a company not too far from us that specializes in insurance jobs just for UTVs, and that's all they do.
Wow.
There's so many of them, they can't even house them all.
Huh.
Isn't that's crazy?
Yeah, crazy.
And it goes back to our earlier part of our conversation where, they buy this thing, don't know anything about it, and go blazing across the desert and destroy the front end. And,
Yeah.
fortunately for them, they bought an insurance policy or a warranty, and they're junking the car.
Well, they need to educate people. Need to find a way to educate them.
That's the hardest thing, ATV riding schools, who do you know that's ever went through one?
I don't know anybody.
Me either. I taught my own kids how to do it. I didn't take them to a riding school. I did it,
Yeah.
So how are we gonna save it, Ed? What are we gonna do?
I don't know. If you make mandatory classes, you're gonna have less people doing it.
Well, as soon as you get the government involved, we're done.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, look what they've already done to us age restricting wise. I think that's another reason why we may not have those middle level bikes is because of the age restrictions they put on ATVs.
Some of them are a little extreme.
I can put an 11-year-old on a 450 dirt bike. There's no law against it.
On dirt bikes.
On a dirt bike.
Dirt bike.
Okay, and that kid can go 3 feet, fall down, fall over, can't touch the ground, but there's no law telling me I can't do that. But I can't put a 12-year-old that's larger than normal on a bigger machine because they can handle it because of the law.
Well, I don't think we're gonna get around that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just why are the ATVs so regulated? That's the thing that bums me out. When they don't regulate.
You think it had to do with the 3-wheeler days?
Yeah, and the more I investigate that, Bill from TPC is super knowledgeable on all that era, and man, Honda screwed up.
Well,
They could have stemmed it all off and fought it all, and they didn't.
I don't know too much about that fight. I wasn't in the industry yet.
Well, so who do they sue for side by sides? Are you ready to be captivated by one of nature's masterpieces? Discover the breathtaking beauty of Antelope Slot Canyon, a natural wonder in Page, Arizona. Join us on a guided tour and immerse yourself in the mystical light beams, rich colors, and serene landscapes. With tours at prime sunbeam hours, experience photographer's paradise and capture memories that will last a lifetime. Comfortable shoes, a camera, and a smile are all you need for this adventure. Book your journey today at Antelope Slot Canyon Tours and let the canyon enchant you. Please visit us now, antelopeslotcanyon.com, for more details.
In Can-Am, probably the biggest ones.
Yamaha was first. So they're suing the crap out of Yamaha for all of this stuff, and Yamaha's fighting all the lawsuits and winning because they're fighting. If they would have paid, UTV's industry would have done.
Hmm. Well,
But Yamaha's standing firm. And then they have help. I mean, I can't get too deep into it, but they have help. But they're standing firm on fighting all of them. You know, that at roughly 2,500 police reports written on three-wheelers,
mhm.
every report said it was pilot error, driver error.
On the three-wheeler
Yep. And Honda
Yeah.
paid.
and Honda paid.
Yeah, they didn't want bad publicity. Well, they got bad publicity because they paid.
Yeah. Maybe they should have paid. Or, I mean, maybe they should have fought.
They should have. I don't think the insurance companies don't care anything about you.
No.
They're just, hey, sign the check. This is the cheapest way. End result, it wasn't the cheapest way. I mean, it affected your life in the industry, mine. Everybody got affected by those decisions because our industry has suffered from it ever since.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't know where it's going to go. You know, we'll see. I'm glad that there's a diversified enough industry that we can have guys like you building parts and you know other companies doing it, and there's 6, 8, 10 of you that do a great job, and there's enough business for you.
Hopefully it stays that way.
Right. I think it will. I don't think that off-roading is going to go away.
I don't think it's going away anytime soon. No.
There's still so much. Do you like because you do enough UTV business? Do you ever get to go out to like King of the Hammers or anything like that and watch some of your stuff work?
Yeah, I've been out there. I didn't go, went last year. I've been going since 2020, I think it was, or 19. I've been going. I missed 1 year, year before last.
And what's it like out there at King of the Hammers?
Oh, it's insane. I'd have never believed how big it was unless I saw it myself. Have you ever been out there?
Never been out there.
There's got to be over 100,000 people out there for a whole week or a week and a half. Well, a week and a half to two, something like that. It's its own city. It's unbelievable. I've never seen anything that big before for off-roading.
And it's motorcycles and UTVs only.
Motorcycles, yes, yeah, motorcycles. Well, and then they got all the truck classes too. But as far as our industries, motorcycles and 8 UTVs. But they got trucks, 4,400 trucks, They got all kinds of different classes. They got some miscellaneous night races. They run some Volkswagen Bugs out there, the old Volkswagen Bugs. They have a race at night for those things around some track they put up. But they got all kinds of stuff.
And we can't get ATVs in there?
I don't know. I don't know why they don't run ATVs. Maybe they feel they won't make it through. I don't know. I guess they could probably they have a desert race and they have the rock race. So ATVs through that rock race would be very challenging, but they could throw them in. They could put them into the desert race, and Western Desert does it. So why not? I don't know what it would take to get them in there.
Well, dude, we could ride Renegades and Outlanders and the Polaris Scrambler in the rock race.
Well, there's some big rocks. There'll be some racing for sure.
I'm not going to be riding in the rock race for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
it would be interesting. I think it would be very interesting to get some of those 4x4 quads in there into the rock race. I think it would be a disaster to get the 2-wheel drive ones in there, honestly, but I think the 4x4 ones, there might be a possibility of that being being able to finish on one of those. But there's some rock climbs and some other stuff that you're not going to do on a 2-wheel drive quad.
man, maybe what are the inclines like? Or the declines? Are they pretty severe?
There's some that are probably 3-4 foot drops, some probably even bigger. So it's not so bad for the drop. So you just jump off the drop and land and keep going. It's you got to go the other direction, that you're probably not going to make it.
There's always, where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Well, that's true. Yeah.
They've been telling us ATV guys, oh, you can't do that forever, and we turn around and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there's a way around. Some of the really bad ones, they have bypasses. You could probably take the bypasses and get around. But some of those, you gotta watch some of the videos from King of the Hammers. You'll see some stuff that's so gnarly.
I've seen some of the videos with some of those cars hitting rocks at the speeds they do, and it pitches the whole car sideways, and I'm just waiting for the parts to fly off, and they don't. So the myth of how frail they are, I'm just thinking, well, that guy just freaking blasted that monster boulder, and it didn't rip the wheel off of his car. Then I'm starting to think, okay, well, this is a modified race vehicle, not what they're selling to the general public as well.
Some of those are heavily modified, yeah. Most of them are heavily modified. I don't know too many. There's a handful of people, that will go out there on a car that's fairly stock. Not too, a lot of stock parts, not too much gusseting, but those guys typically, they're just there for the finish. They're not there to win it. They're there because they want to just finish.
But doesn't that rock race destroy your car?
Well, the guys that I've worked with, sometimes they'll run the same car the following year. They just go through and rebuild everything. And you do dent stuff and bend stuff, so you got to fix up some of the stuff. But a lot of those cars where they go as far as boat siding, the chassis and all that stuff, there's a lot of stuff put into it, skid plates, all kinds of stuff.
Did they use aluminum plates, or are they using poly?
Poly. They're using poly. Yeah.
And everything is form fitted?
Most of it is.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty intriguing. I come from the era, which you were there then too, when aluminum skid plates were the thing and everything was aluminum. And I fought that entry level poly stuff for a while until I just was forced into trying it. And I am so glad, because I wish I would have went poly 5 years before I did, because I never.
There's a trade-off. there's a trade-off. And I deal with a lot of the GNCC guys, so I'll go back to the quads. I Jared McClure, I know you know that name.
Yes.
He has always wanted to stay on aluminum skid plates. And I was making them for a while. They ended up, the sales dropped off so much, I haven't made them in a few years. But you could get more ground clearance out of aluminum than poly for the same amount of strength. I had a few guys that were running my aluminum skids, and they'd hit a rock or take an impact, and it took the impact better. And so you start getting the guys that want to run the same poly skid plate, same thickness, and they hit a rock and it dents the frame where the aluminum won't. So it's a trade-off. If you want the trade-off, to me, the trade-off is ground clearance. If you want the same strength in a poly, you got to go at least 2 to 3 times the thick of the aluminum. Well,
So let me ask you this. Is the 1/4 inch that you're saving really that much?
the GNCC guys think so. So it depends on how much you're dragging. You know, if you've got, let's say you got a 1/8 inch or 3/16 aluminum skid plate, and you're hitting here and there and a little bit, you know, not too much. You just can keep your momentum moving through all these mud holes, and then you lose another 1/4 inch, but now you're dragging twice as much in some of these places. So, you know, it's like a skid plate. If you've got a guy that's got an 1/8 inch thick skid plate, and you know, as they go through the ruts, they keep shaving the dirt down, right? The dirt's a certain height, the hump in the middle, you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Well, if you got a 1/4 inch more clearance than the guy in front of you or behind you, you're not going to slow down as much.
Yeah, but that poly, the thicker poly takes so much shock out of the hits. The dragging, I'm gonna have to give them that one. But with everything that we do out here on the West Coast, you know, the thick poly saves the chassis, saves so much.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's a trade-off. Either you're going to drag more than the guy with poly, or you're going to hit stuff and absorb better. But you need the thicker poly to be equal. You can't run 1/8 inch skid plate and it be the same as the 1/8 inch poly.
Right.
When you go hit a boulder.
Right. Well, that's why I'm saying on the West Coast, I don't think we're as ground clearance critical as they are in the cross country.
Probably.
But I'm gonna ask some of the guys I know in cross country and you know, get their take on it,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a very logical way to put it, and I hadn't thought about it that way. It's just like when we're trying to build sprocket guards and rotor guards. You know, how far down should it go? How do you build one strong enough to take the pounding on the West Coast versus what they have to deal with on the East Coast? And then there's a whole science to it. You're probably more able to talk about it than I am, because I was dealing with Mike Sloan and I had to build things that were so nuclear that, you know, I could hit a boulder at 70 and it would break the boulder, not the skid plate.
Yeah. We built some skid plates too. And actually, I think we got a handful of them in the work series. And it's the same thing. It was trying to gain all the ground clearance you can in the middle, you know, between the sprocket and the brake disc. So I think that the GNCC guys are a lot more critical. You give them an 1/8 inch of ground clearance, and that's the new hot ticket. You got 1/8 inch, and that's what they want. If you can get another 16th, yeah, that's what they want. You know, it's all about ground clearance with those guys.
Yeah, I get it. I just you can only do so much and make it
Yeah.
so strong, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Would a shark fin style rotor protector work?
For the brake, I'm sure it would. Somebody did that. Was it Hess? Did Hess do?
Hess has
No,
a billet aluminum piece that hangs down, and actually you lose some ground clearance. For the East Coast guys, I probably would look to something else.
yeah.
But on the West Coast,
The
we could get
East
away.
Coast guys run more of a traditional skid plate under the rotor. They want that little flap under the brake rotor. I actually, you know what? I think I think it was Hess or maybe somebody else. They were running one that went around the bearing carrier as like kind of like a brake stay, but it hung down.
Yeah, that's what Hess does.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of. I don't know.
I use a lot of them on the West Coast.
Oh, you do on the West Coast. Okay, okay. I think they have a different thinking on the East Coast when it comes to the brake rotor.
That's why I ask about the fin, because if you built it strong enough and the same height as the rotor, as close to the rotor as you could get it, do you think that it would survive? Or do you think that you could build something like that to protect the rotor?
I think you could. I think though that in the cross country they do a lot more sliding. The rear end, as we're in the desert, we're mostly going straight, and then we'll come into a corner, and then we'll go straight. So if they slide the correct direction, right, and the disc is there, and they hit something with it, it's going to bend it because they only have a sharp fin on one side. So I think with all this flippiness on the East Coast, they're a lot more apt to hit the rotor sideways than we are here on the West Coast. And that might be why they don't run it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a very difficult conversation because there's so many different concepts out there, and um, some of the stuff works and some of it doesn't. Like Honda TRX 450Rs, I've seen very few bent rear rotors, but the Yamaha R, almost every machine I see has a bent rear rotor. From the guys that are going to the sand dunes, they're coming in and the rotors are bent.
Oh, the sand dunes?
Yeah, I'm getting bent rotors on almost every bike that I get.
That could be from, isn't the bolt pattern on the Yamaha a lot smaller?
Yep.
So you got more rotor there, more leverage for bending.
Yep.
And the Honda rotor,
It's a bigger bolt pattern.
yeah, it's a bigger bolt pattern, so you got more strength there, keeping it from bending.
And also in the Honda and the inner portion of the rotor around the pattern, there's no holes. It's more solid.
Okay, that's probably why.
They on the Yamahas, they have some of the where they cut out for the weight or dirt transfer, whatever it is. They cut a lot of material out of there.
That's probably why those are bending more. There's a lot less support.
And I don't think even if you made it solid, on the outside of that rotor bolt pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So if you went with solid and did away with all those lightning grooves, and even went an inch out in diameter, I don't think that it would help it because the main support is so tiny.
And is the Yamaha a three bolt or a 4 bolt?
Four.
Okay. I'm sure it's a smaller bolt pattern. If they were to grow that bolt pattern out, you'd have all this support way out here.
I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. That would be great.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know why. I don't know why they did it that way. But for motocross, those guys are changing stuff all the time. So
yeah,
going to a different style rotor most of the time. So I don't think they even care.
Yeah.
But it's cool stuff. I mean,
yeah.
I love. Go ahead.
I say so many different ideas and different ways of thinking.
and I've done a lot of my own development of the parts that I try to use,
Mhm.
just because I think a little differently than some, and not always have I found. Sometimes what I want is built, and I just have never seen it,
Mhm.
and I go to try to build it myself. Um, from sprocket guards to rotor guards. OMF built me some skid plates for the TR for the Honda that
Mhm.
were really small and worked, and they're still running. I'm still running some of them. They're throwaways, but they're $500 throwaways, and you got to use them
Big
for
plates for the swing arm or for the frame?
the swing arm.
Oh, swing arm. Okay.
Yeah, and they were great. I still have a couple of them running in the local desert.
Mhm.
That were takeoffs because they were beat up too bad, and a guy didn't have a part, so I let him use it, and it's still going. But Tim Orchard won't make them anymore.
No.
I don't blame him. I mean, he's semi-retired, and it's not cost efficient. There's just not enough money in it, and nobody's
Yeah.
the skid plate industry. What has kind of died?
Yeah. There's not too many people around making them anymore.
Hey, there used to be 10 or 12 companies making them, and now there's nobody.
Making the skid plates.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I still have one that I haven't parted with. You remember Ed Burns from X Factor? Did you know him?
No, I didn't know him.
He used to make some real beefy skid plates for the 250R, and I had gotten one from him back in the day. It's all aluminum, like we were talking about, and it's indestructible. I'm gonna put it up for sale one day, but it's still in my shop. Never got rid of it. There's not another one like it that I know of, but it is probably two. I'm thinking it's 2 or 3 layers of 3/16 aluminum plates stacked on top of each other on either side. So
Wow.
it's at least a foot. It's a big, beefy aluminum plate, and he put a lot of work into it.
You're not going to destroy that.
No, no, that's gonna last a long time.
Uh,
But,
we when we were racing Best in the Desert back when we were working with Cycle Parts West,
mhm.
they had one of the guys on the team had a relative, and he made billet swing arm skid plates.
I remember you guys running those.
They were awesome. Uh, I've been since we quit doing all that. I don't know where they all went.
Mhm.
Yeah, all the guys had billet swing arm skid plates.
Yeah.
The swing arm skid plate was stronger than the swing arm.
Yeah, I think I remember. I don't know if it was those. Wasn't there some you guys that caused the swing arms to start breaking, didn't it?
Not that I don't remember us breaking those. Roll made some stainless ones that were really flat, or a guy made them for him.
Mhm.
But the swing arm, every swing arm that you make is going to break.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I don't know how the cast aluminum, or why the cast aluminums break less than the steel ones do.
They figured those out. I'm surprised when they first came out. I was thinking they were going to break like the old 250R aluminum swing arms,
Yep.
but they got those things right.
Those are all cast in either Ohio or Indiana.
The aluminum swing arms.
Yeah,
Huh,
they're all cast in the States.
I did not know that. Hmm.
A lot of the TRX 450R parts were developed here in the States. It's great for us, you know.
Yeah,
And well, the Yamaha 450R, wasn't it all built and developed in Georgia?
I don't know. That's it.
Yeah, I believe it is. I
Huh.
believe they do all that work in Georgia. The motors come from Japan, and the bikes are assembled
Fairly,
in Georgia.
huh. Well, that's good.
Yeah, yes, we just did a show on this not too long ago. Honda has a plant that's been open for 40 years and I forget what state it's in, but they've been here 40 years
Yeah.
building ATVs. It's an ATV.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's one of their four-wheel drive setups, but still
Mhm.
40 years.
Yeah, that's a long time.
It's a
Back in
really,
the 80s.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Coming over and doing it.
Yeah.
And did you ever see the 200X, the 87 200X?
Three-wheeler?
Yep.
That was my first off-road bike.
So the 87, they didn't sell.
86 or 87. What was the first year that 200X came out?
83.
It wasn't in 83.
83, 84, 85 were the same. They changed it in 86. And in 87, they had them built. And they didn't sell them. They didn't sell any three-wheelers. They didn't sell the 350, the 200, or the 250Rs.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever saw the 87 250R. Nobody ever saw the 87 350. But the 200s were already built, and they went to Argentina. And they built them. They turned them into four-wheelers.
Okay.
So in Argentina, you see 200 four-wheelers back there. But a friend of mine here on the West Coast has one here in the States. It's you can't get them shipped in.
Really?
Yeah, because they're still calculated as an ATC.
Interesting.
Yeah, cool. There's cool stuff, that you get to see all over the place. That there's a lot of history and a lot of great stuff in our industry that's still out there, and these collectors are buying it all up. You ever heard of Binkies?
No.
It's on the East Coast, and it's a museum for three-wheelers and four-wheelers.
Mm-hmm.
I forget it's a military contractor that built a train-driven three-wheeler, and you can look it up. Dirt Wheels did a story on it, and it's chain-driven on the front wheel.
Huh. Well, I don't know if I've seen that.
You know what? If I have the picture in my phone, I'll send it to you. I believe I took a photo of it, and it looks kind of like a CRF style package, but it's got this elaborate chain mechanism that drives it off the front wheel.
No drive on the rear, just the front, or all three.
I think you know what? I was so enamored with looking at the front, I don't even remember looking at the back. Because there's tubes that the chain rides through to hide it, on the front.
Yeah.
And it was built for the military.
Well, that's cool stuff.
I'm thinking, why would the military want a three-wheeler that's chain driven in the front?
You would think the rear's driven too. Maybe they're trying to get better.
It may be, but they wanted a stealthier sound and all this stuff. Is one of the things they told me about it. And it's a 450. It's pretty awesome looking machine. I'll try to. If I don't have the photos, I'll reach out to those guys and get one, because I bet money your mind would start clicking as soon as you seen it. Like, why?
No, that'd be cool to see. I don't know why they would have done that.
If you get a chance, look up Binkies. They have rows and rows of refurbished ATCs, and then they have a lot of the TRX, or a lot of the quads, from refurbished to race machines. Doug Gus bike in there, Shane Hitz bikes in there. All of the guys have bikes back there.
Make a trip to the East Coast and make a stop.
Yeah, dude, when you go back there, you have to. I think it's in West Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool stuff, man. Cool stuff. Ed, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. Getting some insights from you, being one of the developers and builders in the industry, is always awesome. Not enough of you guys want to sit down and talk, because you guys are builders. You're not talking about it, you're doing it. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to share us with your family and friends. The podcast is available on all streaming platforms, and you can find us on social media as ATV Talk Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter.